Hi, Tim.
Hi, Gretel. How are you?
Really good. We've already said hello. We've been chatting, but it was high time we hit record so we can
Good, good.
get
Well,
this
all the
conversation.
laughs are out of the way, so it's all straight and narrow serious from here.
Absolutely. And I must say, your hair looks amazing.
Thank you. I spent some. My stylist was taking care of it. You look fantastic too, by the way.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So Tim and I have got to know each other along the way. Yeah, I'm talking today to Tim Hayden, who is quite an incredible human being and a separated dad who,
Indeed.
yeah, he's had quite a journey there too. And yeah, the way he has lived that journey and the things that he's learned along the way. And, it's all quite incredible and fascinating. And hey, we're all still on this parenting journey, right?
That's
So,
right.
yes. So we're going to just talking to Tim today about that. Love chatting with Tim. We just have the best time when we talk together and, come up with all kinds of things. So we're just going to talk today. There's several come to Jesus moments that we're going to be talking about that Tim's had before. So we're going to dive into that too. Yeah, Tim works as a coach also, because both of us started out doing the same life coaching course together, and we sort of branched off in different directions, but very much related. So Tim is the founder and owner of Renovate Life Coaching. So I'll let you tell everyone a little bit more about that before we dive
Oh,
into
thank
the juicy
you.
conversation about being a separate parent.
Well, I guess Renovate Life Coaching sort of came from going through, I don't know, being a middle-aged man and thinking that the clients that I would speak to would naturally be other middle-aged men who might be going through time of transition in their lives. And how do I talk to them? And well, actually, since then, I've kind of realized that um, uh, it doesn't need to be about that, that targeted, and sometimes it's difficult to actually get the men to talk.
Yeah.
So but Renovate Life Coaching is kind of stuck, mainly because I think that it really speaks to the value of foundations, and I think Renovate basically is about repurposing things and changing them, and enclosing the veranda or opening it up and changing things. But the foundations, if the foundations are solid,
Right.
then you get to renovate what you currently got. And
I
I
love
guess
that.
that's kind of my philosophy, and my what I think for me, foundations are built on values.
Right.
And the more that you know your own personal values, the more that they just guide the decisions that you make in life.
I love
And yeah, I've kind of probably got three. I got three values which
Yeah,
are
go on.
integral to me. I was
Yeah.
going to get a tattoo for my 50th, but I chickened out. Um,
Oh, come on. You should so get that.
well, maybe I should. Connection, creativity, and curiosity,
Right.
and I would use those in terms of how I approach parenting as well. And
Ah,
like
amazing.
I think, like all of us, I'm an imperfect parent, but the more I'm in touch with those values,
Yeah.
um, the better. The
But that's
better.
the best thing. You're a human being, so you get to be imperfect.
Exactly. Exactly. I've 100% put my hand up for that.
Oh,
But
yes.
yeah,
When we try to be perfect, which doesn't exist, by the way, it just doesn't. When we try to be imperfect, that's when we run into all kinds of trouble. And, because there's no such thing as a perfect mother, perfect father, perfect parent, perfect breakup, perfect house, nothing. There's no
yeah,
such thing as a perfect child either,
and I
because
think it's
they're also a human being.
that's right, and we're all different in the moment as well. And I think it's really terrific that you're doing this series,
Yeah.
because the more that we get to learn from other people, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of them as well, because the more that you see other people, the more that you kind of reflect on how things are working out for yourself, and you go, oh, I'll take a little bit of that and a bit of that, and no, that doesn't work for me. And I guess you help to form your own formula on what works for you.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, Tim has got this mission at the moment to work with not-for-profits. So that's so exciting. I can't wait to see all that unfold. And so we'll put
Yeah,
details of all that down in the
yeah,
description of this video.
Cool.
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 So yeah, looks like we froze a little bit there, so I'll just edit that bit. That's fine. But yeah, really exciting. So we'll put all of the details of that down in the description of the video. Cool. All right. Well, let's talk about parenting. So come on, tell me about these come to Jesus moments. I want to know.
Awesome.
Tell me about yours and I'll tell you about mine. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Well, I'll get, yeah, I'll give you the background. So I have a 16-year-old girl, and
Yep.
she has been 50% between her mother and I for about 8 years.
Yep.
So, that's a pretty formative time for a child, obviously.
Yeah.
If I were to think about maybe some of the milestones along that process, um, one of the tools which I found really, one of the things which really stands out is that, of course, the child is operating in two different kind of ecosystems. In my case, half the time,
Yeah.
not in isolation, but there are different expectations and there's different ways that different households operate.
Yes.
And I think particularly when they're young, helping them to transition into your house. We've always done week on, week off, which
Yeah.
has worked. That's worked well for us. Oh, and it's always been a Friday as well, because I've always loved the idea of let's reconnect on Friday. Even now, Friday night for us, I make pizza. Currently we're into Marvels, but it's a movie night and I make pizza, and that's what we do on a Friday night. We reconnect after the week.
That's
and and
perfect.
and then the weekend is probably, you get the opportunity to connect more, and then the week gets busy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then for us, the following week, well, okay, there's maybe a little bit more time for me to work on things for myself, which is really important as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but I took some learnings away from my workplace, where I'm very fortunate to have worked for a long time for a company which had a strong focus on personal development,
Right.
and also visualizations.
Yeah.
So I mentioned before about values. So we didn't call it a value. We didn't say it was value, but we did a happiness chart when my daughter was young, and I first was setting up a new household, and
Yeah.
that happiness chart, A3 bit of card, and we would go, well, what are the things that bring us happiness? Well, laughter. Um, but then there'd be, things like saying sorry and forgiving.
Yeah.
And, I can think of moments where she would be marching up to the fridge and banging her hand on the saying sorry and forgive, kind of going, Dad, you haven't forgiven yet. You're holding on to that too much, which is,
Ah.
which is a great come to Jesus moment of like realizing that you learn them as many lessons from them as they learn from you.
Yes, I love that. And Tim, I had that exact experience this morning with my little boy. Do you mind if I interrupt you there and
No,
tell the
no,
story? I had
please.
exactly the same experience this morning with my little boy, and I was completely blown away because yes, we've had some challenges recently. I separated 11 years ago.
Yeah,
But
right.
I have a teenage daughter right now, and she's beautiful. She's incredible human being. Nevertheless, relationships are about rupture and repair, right? So,
100%.
and relationships change over time. And yes, sometimes we hold on to things and we, hold on to the way we think things should be. And yes, I do that too, even though, despite all of the stuff that I know, all the things that I do, but the thing is, being aware of it is one of the most important things, and you can actually be with yourself and be with what's inside you and help it to move through so that you can be more present, right? But
Yep.
this story came about this morning, where my little boy gave me this most perfect analogy, and I haven't actually told this story yet, so this is the very first time, so I'm hoping it's going to come out right.
I'm all ears.
Gave me the most perfect analogy about how to allow emotions and how to be with people in relationship when there's emotions involved. And I was just gobsmacked. This is in the car on the way to school. He was like, Mum, you know, Um, okay, so when you talk to my sister, clearly she used her name, but I'm not going to do that here.
Mm.
When you talk to my sister, and you get angry about something, you've got to. It's like a it's like a frying pan getting really hot, right? So it gets really hot, and then when it's really hot, you can't just touch it and even put water on it then, because if you do, it blows up, right? So you've got to, when it's really hot, you just got to give it time to cool down.
So
And I'm like,
he's telling you this. That's awesome.
yeah, and
You've
I'm
got
like, wow.
That's such a self-aware kid.
And I'm like, wow. And I've been working with him a lot and to help him be aware of his own emotions and how things are in relationships. But you kind of think, 11-year-old boy is probably going over his head. But no, this kid has got some wisdom. And so then it continues, right? This even blew me away even more. It was around the fact that, yeah, and sometimes, Mum, even the next day with the frying pan, you might forget that it was on, and you might just leave it on, and even the next day it might still be hot.
Yeah, right, right.
And
So
I'm like,
you've got to check back in with what's going on around you.
yes, and you have to be very gentle so
Mm,
that, yeah, and he said this, Mum, you have to be gentle so that you don't get hurt. And I'm like, wow.
yeah.
I'm so blown away by this kid right now. And so I told him that. I said, hey, I am so blown away by how you just described how to handle this situation. Something really complicated. You just told it in like a really beautiful
Yeah.
story, really
Oh,
easy to understand. And you know what that's called? That's called an analogy. He's like, oh, wow.
yeah.
Told an analogy.
I the power of storytelling and obviously you've engaged your boy in that, and to be able to tell stories which put a message across like that, and for kids to understand that, that's at that
Yeah.
age particularly, that's awesome. That's
Yeah, I'm blown away by that. And that's just a perfect example of what you just said. Your kids teach you.
oh yeah,
And being
100%.
open to being
Yeah,
taught, and
yeah,
yeah, and being open to being taught. And yeah, sometimes it's not easy to be open to be taught because we're dealing with our own stuff. You're just like, oh, but when you can actually just go, wow, okay.
yeah. I
Woo,
don't
stop
you
for a moment.
don't you just wish that you were always in that moment where you do see that though? Like
Yes.
I think I'm better at it now, but
Yeah,
like if I had to think back at like that period where you're newly separated and things have changed, and there's so much going on,
yeah,
and a whole lot of swirling emotions and so on, and yeah, you're not always at your best.
yeah.
So I think the more that you can have some structures in place, the better.
Okay, what do you mean?
The So for us, that happiness chart, the
Right.
first thing that we
Yeah,
would do on a Friday afternoon when I picked her up from after school care
yeah.
would be to come in. It was up on the fridge, put a plonk her bag down, get one of those little steps in the fridge so she could read it, and we would take turns to read them out.
Yeah,
And
right.
so that created an expectation of how we were going to approach things. Now,
Yeah,
I say this with clear messaging that the perfection was never ever reached, and you never achieve it, and so many things have got wrong.
not about
But
perfection.
but
La
but
la.
I know
Yeah,
that really helps, particularly
yes,
when you kind of going, well, yeah, things are different in mum's house than
yeah,
what we do things here.
yeah.
Not better, not 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 just different.
That's like, yeah,
And but ultimately, the more that we get in touch with what our values are, and I
yeah,
think that probably is another thing which I think is a really great opportunity to do as parents, is the more that you find those opportunities to talk to kids about what's important and what their values are and how we communicate with each other, the more that we understand each other. Like, like your son giving you that lesson there.
yeah.
A simple one. Um, my daughter and I did love languages. And
Uh,
so
yeah,
you kind of understand Well, I think it kind of worked. I was going to say worked against me. Maybe that's not right, but words of affirmation is really important for me. And so
Yeah.
she knows actually for my birthday, I just need to have a nice card with some words on it. You don't need to buy the thing. Just a nice card with words on it. That's sufficient. Although she's got a job now, Gretel, so I'm hoping for something big this year. But no.
You
But
never
but
know.
but
Yeah,
but I think the more that you find things that you can engage in where you have meaningful
yeah,
discussions around how you interact and the way that that what's important for one person, and is different than the other, and we understand the differences between as a parent and a child. I
yeah,
think there's some really great things to land the foundation on. Um,
yes,
Expectations then come from that, and
yeah.
I think
Okay,
expectations expectations work in both directions.
okay.
So,
What do you mean when you say expectations?
well, I guess there's the behavioral expectations um, around the way that you might do things in your house, and um, around how we talk to each other. But they all have a foundation in values.
Okay,
So,
got it. Yeah,
like expectation might be that we listen to each other, and we have really open conversations when there's a conflict,
right.
or when there's a conflict we take time out. And so it would be really important for me, and I struggled with this when she was younger, when she was sort of in that 14 period was difficult, because I'd never been a 14-year-old girl, and I'd never been a 14-year-old with a phone in my hand. And I think those two things have been totally connected. Being able to be connected and
Yes.
to your friends, and like what am I? How would I know, middle-aged man, about that? But I struggled. I struggled quite a bit with that, and one of the
Yeah,
things that once I got a better understanding of her expectations of me,
yeah,
which was that when she was angry with me,
yeah,
annoyed with me about something, that she needed to have time out,
yeah,
and for me not to, because one of my challenges is I like resolution, and the trouble is, of course, that I push for resolution because I like to
yes,
get closure.
yes.
And I like to get acknowledgement, or I like, but but she set that expectation with me that
Okay, that's
um,
powerful.
I need to take time. Oh, I didn't always listen. I didn't always get it, but it was there.
So how do you see
So
that as a challenge for you?
um,
At one of your challenges, you said.
well, the challenge for me is that I like to resolve things in the moment.
Okay.
You know, so which is an ongoing. It's better if I don't go into her room, for example, and make judgments about her floor being covered in things, and start suggesting that if something's in your hand, you should put it in the bin. Because I'm not a neat freak, but I like to resolve things in the moment.
Okay. And how
And
is it a
and
problem?
Oh, well, because the expectations I have of myself, I project on someone else.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And that's and like as you get old, as your child gets older, we had a discussion about this the other day. I said to her, like, I guess we're kind of moving towards something where we're becoming we're going more into a housemate kind of situation. Things will change over time.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we're always going to be dad and daughter,
Yeah.
but the roles change, and it becomes one of much more, you are setting yourself up for the friendship that you will have in the future. Someone
Yeah.
told me once, and
Yeah, that's
a very
nice.
wise,
So you
but
get
a
to be
very,
her father and have that friendship as well.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so I think there's something that you learn there around how you see the relationship changing over time.
Yeah, okay. And yeah, what you said about expectations before, that's a really big learning for me too, because expectations of parents can be hugely damaging for children when we expect them to live up to our expectations, which essentially, and more often than not, are our unmet needs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's why I was asking about expectations, because yes, expectations as to, you know, how we behave in order to relate to each other, you know, that kind of thing, which is what you were talking about, right? And
Yeah.
how we get along, how we transition, you know, how we relate to each other, like, which is what I just said, but yeah, how we relate to each other. But then, you know, when you come down to expectations that parents have, it can be something that, you know, children really struggle with and take on a lot of trauma around, because there's no room in a lot of the time with parents expectations that they, with control, impose on their children, like this is the way you've got to be. Then you know, children can take on a lot of trauma, and they're not actually able to express their own authenticity in relation
Yeah.
with their parents.
And and then, you know, then there's the whole complexity of going between two houses where there's different expectations being
Yes.
placed upon them.
Yeah.
And so how do you help your child to transition both ways when they're
Yeah.
going to the other parent's house and when they're coming? And
Yeah.
and that, you know, as they I do think that um if you if you kind of talk openly about how you do things in your house
Yeah.
and how that might be different, and as much as any of us can do it without judgment,
Yes.
then
Yeah.
you're helping to do that transition. And in my case, that kind of happiness chart, particularly when she was young, worked really well. Like,
That's
we
good.
don't do it now. We kind of laugh at it a bit, I suppose. But what it does give it, it gives us a frame of reference to talk about values and the
Yes.
things that are important for each of us. So
That's a
I'm really
beautiful foundation that was relevant to her at that age.
and I'm really fortunate that you know, she is a very self-aware um, and very intuitive young lady. So, you know, you know, that's an interesting one, isn't it, as well? Like, I do think the relationship when it's a single child is, you know, like, each child is different. But I think when you're solo parenting and there's one of them and one of you, oh, that sounded like combative. I mean but it's a different relationship because
Yeah.
you y- there's not someone else that can play sub if you need to go off to your bedroom and just have some time out from dad, or you kind of, oh, dad's needing, you know, there's no other interplay. It's just the two of you. And I think it creates, in my case, I think it's created an opportunity to have a real depth of
Yeah.
you know, like, I mean, again, every family is different, but um, you know, I think for my daughter and I, the fact that it's just the two of us has mean that we've got a really a really amazing connection with each other,
Yeah.
which has been, you know, it's had its ups and downs through time, but it's based on really solid foundations.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yes.
I don't know if I'm getting myself across here, but
No,
you
no,
know,
no, that's absolutely so beautiful and perfect. And I want to say here also that yes, that one-on-one time with your child is really
yeah.
powerful. I mean, it's super challenging for those families that where a single parent, sole parent has two or three
I
children, because there's and I just want to say here for people who do, you know, that there's a way that getting that one-on-one time in some way,
mm,
in some small way, is really, really important. So each child has that, and it's challenging. Let me tell you, I've got two children who are incredibly, incredibly different, and they need very different things. They're different ages, for one thing, very different personalities, very different life experiences, because obviously, you know, their childhoods were different too, because of where I was at with their dad, you know, 11 years ago, what the relationship was like, what they picked up at the time, you know, so many differences. And so they're very different. And so getting that one-on-one time with them is very challenging sometimes, but it's really necessary to try to do that, just for the reasons that you're saying, that you can really start to develop that depth
yeah.
your
I,
child
I
one.
I can see that with friends of mine, both, those who are, happily coupled, but
Yeah.
particularly, but certainly there's more, there's probably more, effort, or there's more um, work needs to be done when you're a single parent. And I've seen, a couple of friends of mine stand out who are in that situation, and they've just really mindfully have recognized the differences between their children, and create those opportunities. And I think that whole creating opportunities, those little moments to have as special, is a really great thing.
Yes.
Um, there's there's a book. It's terrible. I can't recall what it is, but it's just that, creating magic moments, the highs, the things that we remember, are the lows and the highs, and the things that just happened. And, if you can create those peak moments of
Yeah.
learning
Yeah.
and joy, then
Yes.
I think they're great things.
Yes, because when you have more than one child, you've got the each child individually, and you've also got the together dynamic. Like you've
Yes.
got the them together, and you've got the all three of us, like the parent and two children dynamic. There's lots of different. There's a lot more different dynamics that come in the more personalities and people there are in a household, which is challenging, but it's also beautiful.
Yeah.
Both are challenging and beautiful in their own way, like whether you've got just one parent, one child. But I think, like you just said, creating those magic moments is perfect. Like, for instance, for an example, if you've got a younger child and an older child, great. So you spend time reading a story and having a chat before bed with the younger child. You get them to bed and sing them a song, do whatever. Like, I've got a little routine with my little boy that I still do. We've just modified it because he's older now.
Yeah.
It's like a time of connection with just him and me in the evening. And then after that, you connect with your older child, maybe in the kitchen, and say, wow, whew, how are
Yeah.
you doing? You just connect with them. And hey, do you want to make a hot cocoa or something? I don't know, whatever. Like, it's
Yeah.
just an example. It's just
Oh,
an opportunity to then connect with them. And, if they don't, that's fine.
yeah, and I
But
think
you're
that
available.
just that finding the opportunities to connect in the
Yeah.
moment, and
Yeah.
sometimes to create that opportunity. Like, yeah, I'm
Yes.
going to make cocoa. I've wondered sometimes how I would have been if I'd had if there were two children, and like I wouldn't wish it any other way, because I really love what I have. But
Yeah.
um yeah, maybe I'm better when there's a one-on-one kind of. I've always said I prefer the one-on-one kind of style of relationship,
Like you said, I
rather.
think it's probably different, not better necessarily. I
Yeah,
wouldn't wish for anything other than what I have, but that's
yeah,
but that's both of us looking at what we have and being grateful for it, right?
yeah, 100%,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. Um,
yeah, yeah. Wow, perfect.
yeah, so I think that's like that whole knowing those values, creating those opportunities,
Yeah,
and probably trying not to take things too too personally as well, which
yeah.
has been another, if I was to think about the things which I've kind of struggled with, because the things that you have difficulty with are the things that you learn the most from.
Yes.
And when she's reacted in a certain way, it's not about me. Oh, well, I might have done something which caused it, but it's just not taking things so personally.
Yeah,
The more that you can step up and observe and
yeah,
watch what's happening, and kind of oh, that's interesting that you're reacting in that way,
yeah,
and change that perceptual position, so that you're looking at that. I guess it takes a bit of uh, steps you away from what's going on. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
the
And that
more that
takes a bit of work on yourself to be able to get to that point. And even if you do take it personally, that's okay too. Don't judge yourself for it. Just notice it, acknowledge it.
yeah,
And like it's like and particularly when you do start to become aware, much more self-aware, and you start to focus on yourself and do the self-development work on yourself, you start to notice, oh my goodness, all the ways that I've gone from 0 to 5,000 with my anger. Oh my goodness, and I've vomited it all over my children. And yes, I've done all these things. Hello. Or, where I've said something that could have been said better, let's say.
Uh,
It's my own stuff coming
I
up.
could,
Just
oh, I
noticing
can,
and acknowledging that, and acknowledging it with your child too, to say, hey, once you've calmed down, of course, but even the next day,
yeah.
even the next week later, it's fine. You can say that.
I think that the more that you can just take responsibility for your own actions and demonstrate that to your child,
Yes.
it
Yeah.
just builds you're role modeling really good behavior about
Yeah.
owning your actions and taking responsibility.
Yes.
And there's a credibility which comes along with that.
Yeah. It's about being
Plus
real
it,
and
it,
authentic.
re- it but it also it releases whatever angst you have about when you've got it wrong and you've reacted badly.
Yes.
And it does. I feel like, I mean, honestly, my daughter's heard me say sorry to her so many times, probably not enough, but like I
Yeah.
I I get so many things wrong, so I've had plenty of opportunities to do it. But I
Yeah.
think it does. Um, it creates something where um, there's a meaning behind it, and there's a value, and there's a learning, and they go, and she can see, well, dad has taken responsibility for that.
Yeah.
And I guess as long as you also demonstrate, well, what have you learned from it, and how are you going to
Yeah.
incorporate the learning, it
Yeah.
means that when they get it wrong, that there is more taking responsibility as well.
Right. And it also releases them from a need to be perfect as well. When they can acknowledge their, oh yeah, I did, that didn't come out right. I was angry. Okay. So yeah, like
Mm.
it releases them from the need to be perfect, and also just to notice and acknowledge their own behavior too. And this is a process too, by the way, anyone here listening, it's something that takes time to develop, like any relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just practicing saying sorry last night. So, like it
Okay.
happened, it's a constant, isn't it? What God, it's
Well, this,
100%. The more
yeah.
that the more you practice something, the better you get, I suppose, don't you?
Definitely. So this has been the most perfect conversation. I really enjoyed this. And, before we probably should wrap it up at some point. We could literally talk for hours, knowing the conversations we've had to date. We could be doing a week-long YouTube video. But maybe we should do that sometime. 24 hours.
Maybe,
Yeah, no, maybe not.
maybe.
But 24/7. I just wanted, before we do wrap up though, I just wanted to say, to ask you, like, what would you say to a parent, perhaps a dad even, because we didn't even touch on this actually, that the experience of dads and mums is somewhat different as well. Maybe we could make another video another time about that. But what would you say to a parent, perhaps a dad, I don't know, I'll leave it up to you, who is in this situation, finds himself in this situation where they've separated, perhaps the relationship with their ex is not the best at that time. And as often isn't because of various conflicts, and depending on the relationship has happened. And you have a child that you're going to co-parent. What would you say to them in terms of
I
where
think
they're
it.
at, how to approach the situation?
I think, and it's well, if all I could say is my reflection on it is, out of adversity, opportunity arises, and the opportunity which I think comes out of it is to be a much more present father. And my situation was probably, I probably did more of the paid side of the work,
Yeah.
and you know so I was 100% responsible for half the time after that point. And so there's an opportunity to really step up and to look at your parenting
Yeah.
and to go, well, what are you going to be? Are you going to be fully present? Um, and I think it's the way that, like, um, I remember doing when we're doing the coaching session, doing a coaching session once when I was doing my course, and someone said, "Oh, so what happens when your daughter goes home?" And I found it. I really reacted really
Mm,
to it because it's like, well, she is home. She's got two homes, and I think
right.
there's the gender thing is interesting there,
Yes.
and that changes over time, and each child has a different, you know, need for their parents in different ways.
Yeah.
Um, uh, 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 I think advice, my learning from my own is
Yeah.
it's an opportunity to really step up and be the best dad that you can,
Yeah.
um, and um, and to give your child the benefit of whatever you bring, and
Yes.
just to work on yourself, because
Yes.
I 100% I was a better dad afterwards as
Yeah. And
as a single dad, because
yeah.
I
Yeah, I know
um,
what the relationship that you've developed with your daughter is incredible. And you've done that by being present and and allowing her to express herself and authentically too, right?
yeah. So thank you for that question, because I think I wish we got to that a bit earlier, because you've now opened up a whole lot of stuff for me.
Yeah, go on.
I just think um, that the yeah, just that learning of actually being able to come up and be fully present,
Yeah.
and be the person who's responsible at all times,
Yes.
and not kind of, you know well, there's another person to rely on. You're just you're it.
Yeah, to
um,
make them feel safe. Is that what you mean?
yeah, to be safe, and to kind of go, well, um, what has happened and what's happening with the friendship circle in grade 6, when the girls are kind of turning on each other, or whatever's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
But just to be really engaged in what's going on in their life, and to
Yeah.
be part of those conversations all the time.
Yeah.
Make the most of the conversations over dinner.
Yeah.
Sit down together. Yeah, Friday night's great to sit and watch a movie and have pizza, but
Yes.
it's really good to sit down every night across the table from each other, and to go, well, what is happening, and what's happening with such and such, and what's happening in the friendship circle. And for me, humor's really important, so we laugh a lot, and and
Yes.
so like, you know just, I guess, finding the opportunities to have
Yeah.
a little bit of humor, and to know the history of what's happening with friendship circles. You
Yeah.
know, where we are now is that my daughter will come home from school. My office is down in the front room. The first thing she does is plonk the couch, sit down on the couch next to me, and
Yeah.
starts telling me about the day.
Wow.
Now, I love that,
Yeah.
because I don't work from. I'm not always here, but a lot of the time I am, and I do have time for that. And it's wonderful that she wants to tell me about it, and it's because I guess I know all of those intricacies of what's going on
Yes, and
with
you've allowed her to feel safe to be herself with you.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
thing. And a lot of the time, and without judgment, like all of these things that you've said in this whole conversation today, to be able to listen and to hold space and allow the other person to be who they are without judgment from you, so that you can then build a relationship together. Because without that relationship, without that connection, and it takes time to build. It's cool. It doesn't happen just like that if it's not there, but it can be built at any point. This is my opinion. um, and without that relationship, it's very difficult to get them to share, or for them to share, or feel comfortable to share what's been going on at school, and for how they do feel about things. And they may not come and seek you out, but the more that you do hold that space for them as a parent, mother or father, doesn't
mm,
matter.
mm,
um, and fathers have a way of doing it that is different and is beautiful and is needed by children as well.
yeah. I 100% agree, and it's like the uh, kids benefit, and
Yes.
get different things from each one of the parents,
Yes, that's
and
right.
and that's a wonderful thing, and that's to be celebrated.
Definitely. Beautiful. Well, let's wrap it up here and stay tuned, folks, for another conversation with Tim Hayden. Because I think we should definitely talk about, yes, gender differences in terms of parenting and social expectations and all that kind of thing too, because that would be a fascinating conversation. I'm very passionate about talking about that. So let's do that.
100%, and we haven't even got into having relationships down the track as well either,
Yeah.
which is a whole interesting thing when you've got kids as well.
Yes, yes, that's a fascinating one to talk about. But yeah, I really love talking to you today, as always. Really fantastic, and I think people watching this will get a lot out of it. So yeah, everyone, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and you did get something out of it. And I'm going to put my details and Tim's also in the description for the video. So yeah, don't hesitate to get in touch. If you'd like to talk to Tim, connect with him, get to know him more. Yeah, or myself, feel free to get in touch, and yeah, stay tuned for the next video.
Nice one.
Bye-bye. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video, found it useful. Feel free to send it to someone else. Talk to you soon on the next one.